Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me once again, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's going on is today we're going to be talking about Muppet Treasure Island, a movie that I've wanted to do on D Plus for a while, especially after Muppet Christmas Carol so many years ago. This was another one of those like Muppet movies of that era. That was like a childhood staple of mine. It's a nice like weaning out of our 90s month because it's obviously another 90s movie. And we're still, next week, the plan is most likely going to be, we're actually probably going to delay the show a day or two next week, because I want to do the Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, series that releases, like a 4-part, episodic thing, but they all release at once next Friday. So basically watching them Friday and recording the episode Friday, and then, or Friday or Saturday, and then uploading Saturday or Sunday is my plan next week. Don't know if anybody's going to join me with that one. It's not typically Cameron's thing, but Cameron might be so desperate to hang out and do content that he'll watch Star Wars Legos thing. Who knows?
There's a good chance. There's a really good chance.
So yeah, that's the plan for next week is do that. And then Agatha All Along comes out like the following Wednesday. So that can be the normal thing. And we'll just do that for a Friday episode. But next week, going to be a little bit delayed. Just because as we're trying to figure out what makes sense this month here. And I've also started, mapped out pretty much what we have for October. Got that fun Halloween month slated. But yeah, Muppet Treasure Island, fun little, again, kind of way to ease out of the 90s month that we did.
It's a good, also, like, we just had Labor Day, so technically, quote unquote, summer's over.
Sure.
And I think this is a good, like, send off to summer. Sure. As well. There you go. You know, we had a summer of the 90s, which was fun. Mm-hmm. And now we're kind of moved into, this is one last fond farewell to the 90s.
A tropical horizon, whatever.
It's an adventure. Right?
Yeah, there you go. Our history lesson here, this was originally released February 16th, 1996. So which does put that, I believe, beyond all of the other things we actually did in our 90s month, because I think everything else was like 95 or earlier.
Yeah.
Other releases of the time, at the tail end of 1995, December 29th, was 12 Monkeys and Mr. Holland's Opus.
Oof.
1996 started out questionably strong with Biodome and Dunstan Checks In on January 12th. Biodome, I loved, and especially like loved growing up because I've been to Biosphere here in Arizona, where they filmed it, and notoriously like wanted to do what they actually do in the movie, but like immediately had contamination issues, and basically it has just become a tourist trap since then. They never really got much in the way of like the scientific stuff they really wanted out of it, because ants or whatever got in from when they shipped in some of the plants, the trees, to like create some of their more tropical biomes. Just immediate contamination issues.
They absolutely never recovered from that.
Yeah. From Dusk Till Dawn was January 17th. We're in, I think this would be considered like late stage Chris Farley era, with Black Sheep was February 2nd.
Yeah, we are getting
like that's
that.
one of the later ones.
It is one of the later ones. It is a reunion between David Spade and, I believe it's their last film together, actually.
Might have been, yeah. February 9th was a movie called Broken Arrow, which I very distinctly remember watching a ton.
Yes.
Specifically on a cruise ship. It was one of the movies that was like, that the cruise ship had when I was like, between 5th and 6th grade, I think. So what would have been, like 96 to 97, maybe something like that. I remember specifically being on that cruise, and yeah, this was just a movie that was on there. And like when we were in the cruise, in the room on the cruise ship, like that was what we would throw on. John Travolta, Christian Slater, like a nuclear warhead has gone missing, and that is like, and learning that is called a broken arrow scenario is like fascinating.
It's honestly such a cool movie, although it has like one of the worst ever like scientific facts in it. That's not a fact; it's fake. Granted, you could explain it by he was trying to calm her down. I'm not going to spoil it. That's an awesome film. If you're wondering what it is, it's the butterflies. The butterfly fact that he gives after a scene was not true.
I watched it many a times. Couldn't tell you what you're referencing because I don't remember much about that movie. Apart from the fact that I watched it a lot.
This is the era where John Travolta starts doing bad guys, and it really works. Sure. He's really good at it. Sure.
Then we have, alongside the same day that Muppet Treasure Island came out on February 16th, we also got Happy Gilmore, iconic Adam Sandler film of the era.
Someone could say it's between it and Billy Madison as his best work.
Yep, that and Billy Madison. Well, I would argue his best work is probably his more like Uncut Gems or his more serious stuff.
Yeah, but Uncut Gems or Reign Over Me. That's another one
of his early comedy stuff. Yeah, it was definitely the 1-2 punch. I have a box set that is the Happy Madison set of Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore. A couple weeks after this, we got Down Periscope on March 1st, another classic that I watched a ton growing up. March 8th, we had The Birdcage, Fargo, and Homeward Bound 2, Lost in San Francisco.
Dude, two of those movies, incredible. One of those movies, I think there's nostalgia glasses because I remember it being good, but I don't know if Homeward Bound 2 was actually good or not.
Homeward Bound 2, I mean, like, Homeward Bound 2 and Homeward Bound 1 are both like, oh, they just shot animals doing animal things with big name actors voiceover stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's fun because Michael J. Fox voices the cat or whatever it is. Or maybe he's the dog.
He's Chance the dog.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember, again, watching these, and this is probably one of those like early things like Mrs. Doubtfire last week. These were probably like my biggest introductions to San Francisco before I ever went to San Francisco. But yeah, I'm sure that movie is very much a product of its time in terms of like trying to revisit it.
Yep. That also reminds me of there's another movie with Van Damme where he's Chance, and it's like, why's your name Chance? Because my mama took one.
Okay. March 15th, I pulled this in here because it's a movie I probably didn't know at the time or hadn't really considered much, but it rose to prominence in H. Bomber Guy's big plagiarism video last year, The Celluloid Closet. March 15th, very much a central focus of his takedown of the James Somerton plagiarism component, where he basically just made videos that were basically ripping off the Celluloid Closet. And then the last one I pulled in here, because traumatizing kids wasn't enough the first time, they had All Dogs Go to Heaven 2 on March 29th. So there you go. Our box office breakdown. Fortunately, we didn't go too deep into 1996 in our conversations last week, so this will be a fun little guessing game for you here. But the domestic gross for Muppet Treasure Island was $34.3 million in 1996, approximately $83.7 million adjusted for inflation. Where do you think that falls in terms of the top movies of the year here in 1996?
Well, you said some pretty heavy hitters in there. Man, I'm trying to think. Maybe 8?
Oh, no. 8. Well, I'll just say it's not 8 because I'm going to do the thing where we'll do the guessing game of the top 10. So rather than tell you like, oh, 8 was blah, 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 I'm going to hold off on that and just tell you, I will say 8 was $121.7 million.
Okay, so we're
well outside of the top 10.
Yeah, we're well outside of the top 10. 26.
26. Beavis and Butthead Do America, $54.1 million.
Okay, 33.
33? The original Jumanji, $42.6 million.
Okay, we're getting closer. 42.
And also, I will say that is... So Jumanji originally came out end of 1995, so that's basically its 1996 money that reached 33. Sorry, what did you say after that?
42.
42. The Ghost and the Darkness, $37.7 million.
That made more money than the Muppets?
Yep.
I'd never even heard of that movie before. Oof.
Yep.
48.
48, The Long Kiss Goodnight, 33.1 million. So we are between 42 and 48.
Okay, 45.
45 is on the money. Muppet Treasure Island, $34.3 million here. So yeah, jumping up to our top 10. What do you think? What do you think were the big heavy hitters this year, Cam?
I mean, let's see. I'm trying to remember the names of some of the films you talked about. It's not All Dogs Go to Heaven 2 because that virtually killed the franchise.
I will say So I've pulled together three little like quote unquote hints for each of the top 10 movies. And I will say that one of my hints for one of them is it is the only movie in the previously mentioned, like, here's what came out around this time that made the top 10. So there's only one movie that we already named or discussed, name dropped, that is in the top 10.
It's not Broken Arrow.
No.
No.
Broken Arrow is number 18. Right between the 1996 take for Mr. Holland's Opus and The Cable Guy.
The Cable Guy with okay.
With Jim Carrey, yeah, a big drop off from Jim Carrey's previous hits, notoriously because they were like, I don't get it. So that one only brought in 60 million, but I believe that's the one he was also super highly paid for.
Yeah,
but yeah,
let's see here.
Broken Arrow was number 18.
Trying to think. I mean, Happy Gilmore, I'm guessing, is in there.
I don't believe it is. I believe it was like that was very much a cult classic. Happy Gilmore was number 41.
Oh, okay.
So closer to Muppet Treasure Island, 38.6 million. We'll start at number 10. Number 10, a movie that brought in $104.6 million. This is one like I would almost certainly never get, but I will give you kind of the main stars for it here as clue number one. Bette Midler, Goldie Hawn, and Diane Keaton.
Bette Midler, Goldie Hawn, Diane Keaton.
Yeah. This is like, maybe this was something that the Abbott family watched or something like that in this era. I don't know. But
oh, First Wives Club?
It is First Wives Club.
Hells yeah. First Wives Club rules. And that is an Abbott family classic right there.
Yeah, my second clue there was it was remade as a TV series that ran from 2019 to 2022 on BET+.
Oh, really? I did not know that they did that.
Yep, they did that version has like an all African American.
I'm guessing, yeah. It's on BET, I would assume so.
And then my third clue here was this movie features cameos from Ivana Trump, Kathy Lee Gifford, Gloria Steinem, and former New York Mayor Ed Koch. But yeah, I was like, this was the hardest one to come up with clues for because I was like, I don't know anything about this movie, and I don't know how to highlight what this movie might be. So, dude,
this movie's so good, and it has one of the best endings of all time. In like the kind of like this is how things end for folks. It is so fantastic of a movie. It is so good.
Nice.
They're all women who are they're best friends from college, and they're reunited by the death of one of their friends. She commits suicide after her husband leaves her, and it brings.
And they're all spurned by their exes, and
recently spurned by their exes. Their exes are all dating younger women. It's a whole thing. The dad from Seventh Heaven, who we now know is a total freaking creep, is a not good person in this movie, and it shows. This movie is fantastic. It has an all-star cast of like really like oh, I know that actor, or oh, I know that actor.
Yeah, I definitely recognized a lot of names and faces from it, but it was like a very much a blind spot in my movie going stuff. As is number 9, 108.7 million, starring Matthew McConaughey and Sandra Bullock. This is, I would say, of the top 10, this and like one other movie are like, I don't know if you'll get these because they would never have crossed my mind in any kind.
Matthew McConaughey. This is early McConaughey.
Yeah, it was like his third or fourth movie because, as we touched on, him showing up in Angels in the Outfield was like one of his early things. But yeah, this is like one of his first leads, I think.
It's not sleep. It's not While You Were Sleeping. It's not. So I'm going through my Sandra Bullock history here. Mm-hmm. So this is post Speed. Or is this pre-Speed?
I think it's only like a year or so post Speed.
Yeah, so it's post Speed.
I'll give you the other
Yeah, other
clues.
hints.
It's a Joel Schumacher film based on a John Grisham novel, and has
Oh,
a Golden Globe nominee performance from Samuel L. Jackson as
yes,
Carl
it's
Lee Hailey.
a Time to Kill.
A Time to Kill is correct.
Yes,
There you go.
this is a fantastic movie. Yeah, no, this is the movie that cemented Matthew McConaughey's career. He's so fantastic in it. It's a brilliant novel as well. John Grisham knocked it out of the park with this, and Samuel L. Jackson is like, it is a brutal portrayal of the institutionalized racism of the South.
Yeah.
And it is a it's a rough movie. It is a rough movie. Yeah, Sandra Bullock plays his co-counsel.
Just gonna, because we have a lot of these to go through, and
let's get
essentially this should really be talking
Yeah.
about Muppet Treasure
Yeah, that's
Island.
fair, that's
we
fair.
don't need to go into every single one.
That's
of these
totally true.
movies.
Sorry, I will keep that as a note for the rest of these films. I probably know all of them.
Yep.
So this is great.
So number 8, $121.7 million. The first clue is that this is the second Disney live-action remake of an animated film after 1994's The Jungle Book.
A live action remake of
One of the early live-action remakes of their animated stuff. Clue number 2, screenwriter was John Hughes. Clue number 3, Glenn Close.
it's 101 Dalmatians.
There you go.
There we
Yep.
go. That makes sense.
Yep. Number 7, 124 million.
That's right. There was a live action Jungle Book that's not just the CGI one.
Yep. Yeah. The 1994 with like the little kid.
Yeah.
That was the first live action from 2 years earlier, kind of thing. Number 7, 124 million. This is the one that is the only movie that has already been mentioned in the like other releases of the time section that made it into the top 10. I will also give you the clue. It was mentioned in last week's Mrs. Doubtfire episode. And the third clue, La Cage aux Folles.
The Birdcage?
The Birdcage. Yep.
I did not know the Birdcage did that
It
well.
did real well with I think with Robin Williams at the fore.
I mean, it's a fantastic film. I just thought because it deals with homosexuality in 1996, I didn't know if it would do well.
Yeah.
But I guess there you go. It just shows even bigots will show up, or maybe it was non-bigots. Everybody showing up to see that incredible performance in that movie. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm gonna keep myself from talking more about it. Let's just move on.
Number 6, 128.8 million. It is a remake of a 1963 film featuring Jerry Lewis. Also won the Academy Award for Best Makeup. And your third and final clue that'll most likely cement it. Hercules, Hercules, Hercules.
Oh, wait, best makeup.
Yeah. Because everybody in that scene is played by Eddie Murphy.
Oh, sorry. That's Nutty Professor. It's Nutty Professor.
Did you think I was saying Hercules, the animated film?
Yes. Which is why I was so confused.
Gotcha.
I was like, one, I don't think it's too early for Hercules, and two, because I was thinking of
About
like
a year, I think.
Oh no! I was thinking of like there is somebody does go somebody does say like, but not in that tone and not like that. Also, I've only seen
it's the grandmother.
Yeah, she would
says,
about
Hercules,
her
Hercules,
grandson because he's like
Hercules, yeah.
posing, but he's like a total fat kid. Yeah.
Yeah, or the mom maybe. Yeah. Number 5. This is the other like potentially tricky one. 129.1 million because this is very much like movie of its era that hasn't really, I think, stayed in the cultural zeitgeist, but it's directed by Ron Howard and starred Mel Gibson and Rene Russo. Gibson plays a millionaire whose son is kidnapped.
Ransom, right?
It is Ransom,
Yeah.
There you go. And yes, give me back my son was going to be the last clue.
I'm not going to give you any money.
And yet,
Yeah.
not digging too much deeper into that because fuck Mel Gibson. Number 4, $134.0 million. Early Michael Bay film.
Bad Boys?
No, that would have been first Michael Bay film, but that was a couple years before this. So that's why I went with early Michael Bay.
Oh, there we go.
Second clue, Oscar nominated for Best Sound.
Sound. I need that third clue.
Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage.
Oh, The Rock.
The Rock, indeed. Yep.
There we go.
Number 3, with 180.9 million, and let's remember we're in 1996, remake of an old TV show.
Sorry, my brain immediately went to Dragnet, and that is not the case because Dragnet did terrible in the box office.
It did. Also, I think it was like late 80s.
Yeah, late 80s.
The second bullet point, a franchise that you don't think started all the way back in 1996.
Franchise that started, and what was the first one? It was
A remake of an old TV show. And the third clue, Tom Cruise does his own stuff.
Oh, it's Mission Impossible.
Mission
there
Impossible,
we go.
indeed.
Yeah.
Yep. Number 2, big jump up to $241.6 million. It is another film, similar to maybe the Mission Impossible series, another film with a recent sequel.
Beetlejuice.
In fact, no, Beetlejuice was like late 80s.
Let's go. Keep going.
It is a sequel, though, from the last couple months. So think of other sequels that...
Give me a second clue.
Dorothy.
Wizard of Oz? No, sorry, Dorothy.
I mean, that's definitely the reference they're making in the movie.
I need the third one.
Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt.
Oh, gosh, that's right. Okay, Twister.
Twister, indeed.
Twister.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, Twister. Dude, Twister was
it
good.
It cleaned up at the box office, yeah.
Yeah.
And number 1 with $306.1 million. This was the Oscar winner for Best Visual Effects, and also a nominee for Best Sound this year.
Sound effects. Best sound. Or visual effects, best sound. Give me number 2.
This is another one that was mentioned a couple times in last week's podcast because a couple of the actors from the last film were also in this film. In particular, I'll give you the extra clue on that one being like Harvey Fierstein was mentioned and the daughter was also.
Oh, not Matilda.
The final clue, Welcome to Earth.
Oh, Independence Day.
Independence
There
Day.
we go. There
Yep.
we go. Thank you.
Indeed.
Oh yeah, Harvey Fierstein isn't it? He's the boss who's like, I gotta call my mother.
Yep. Indeed. Yep, there is Independence Day, number 1 there in 1996, the big summer blockbuster of that year. So yeah, there's our top 10. Once again, First Wives Club, Time to Kill, 101 Dalmatians, The Birdcage, Nutty Professor, Ransom, The Rock, Mission Impossible, Twister, and Independence Day. Again, a very, much like we talked about last week, a wild and eclectic mix of 90s films there in the top of the box office. Back over to the show, and the movie that we're actually talking about was there down back at number 45.
Yep.
On the domestic gross. Film itself, Muppet Treasure Island, back to that, has a runtime of 1 hour and 39 minutes. In the Muppets timeline of things, we fell between the Muppet Christmas Carol that happened in 1992, Muppet Treasure Island here in 96, and then a couple years later we would get Muppets from Space.
Yeah.
And then kind of the dormant period until the 2011 reboot of the Muppets. Not reboot, like bringing back
Renaissance.
I guess reboot is probably the correct term, but it was also a continuation of the Muppets adventures and stuff. Our roll call, the director of this one, Brian Henson, who had gotten his directorial debut with Muppet Christmas Carol, came back, directed this one as well, and then has continued on a lot of the Muppet Legacy stuff, but directorially wise, his big thing in recent years was the Happy Time Murders, a much more adult-themed puppet movie. Our writers here, obviously, we have Robert Louis Stevenson, basing the
novel,
the Treasure Island novel. Jerry Jewell wrote the screenplay. He had also written The Muppet Movie, The Great Muppet Caper, Fraggle Rock, Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet Treasure Island here, and then he would also go on to do Muppets from Space after this. Additionally, Kirk R. Thatcher wrote on the screenplay for this, having started his time with the Muppets around the dinosaurs, or at least starting his time with the Muppets as a writer with Dinosaurs series. Then Muppet Treasure Island here. After that, he would go on and write for the Muppets Tonight series, as well as from a couple years back, Muppets Haunted Mansion Disney Plus special. And James V. Hart was the third writer on the screenplay, who also had written Hook, Bram Stoker's Dracula,
Okay.
Muppet Treasure Island, Contact, Tuck Everlasting,
Well,
Lara Croft Tomb Raider: The Cradle of Life, so the second one,
okay.
Sahara, and August Rush.
What
A
the
very wild mix
What the
of
that is-
screenwriting things.
That is why that is a broad scope of writing.
He's kind of all over the place.
Yeah. Sahara to August Rush. That's wild.
Yep. Our cast of characters here, of course, the venerable Tim Curry as Long John Silver, best known from stuff like Rocky Horror Picture Show and Clue and the original It miniseries as Pennywise. He made a notable, appearance in Home Alone 2 and The Hunt for Red October up around this era. And then has just kind of been a presence on Twitter every now and then, including, I think, not too long ago, basically like, surprise, fuckers, or something like that he tweeted out.
Because he's still alive? Yeah.
Likes reminding us that he's still alive out there on Twitter.
He suffered a very devastating stroke.
Yeah.
And it was extremely sad to see.
Mm-hmm. But he seems to still be in good spirits where he can be. Billy Connolly, or Sir Billy Connolly, as he would now be known, is Billy Bones here, a long-running stand-up comedian in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and probably into the 2000s and 2010s as well. Some of his big breaks prior to this were his work in Indecent Proposal, and he's also one of the voices in Pocahontas, just before this, a year or two before this. Here he is in Muppet Treasure Island. He's also in The Boondock Saints, Series of Unfortunate Events, the 2004 Jim Carrey version, and I believe he's the dad/king in Brave.
Yes, he is.
Iconic Scottish accents and all. Jennifer Saunders is Mrs. Blooveridge, probably best known to British audiences for her long-running Absolutely Fabulous series. She's also in Shrek 2 in the notable role of the fairy godmother. And she has been recently in the Minions movies.
She's absolutely good, and I love her.
Kevin Bishop plays Jim Hawkins. And this is one of those that, like, before doing any of the research in this, I would have been like, Kevin Bishop, this is probably the only thing he ever did. Because I feel like not the greatest performance in this. And it feels like one of those, like, oh, he was a kid actor that just never did anything after this. Like, let's say JP from Angels in the Outfield.
Sure.
Feels like could have been another Kevin Bishop kind of thing. But no, he stayed very active over in the British shows scene over the years, including having his own The Kevin Bishop Show in 2008, 2009. And the most fascinating thing I saw looking him up is he has been the speaking voice of 2D in the Gorillaz band since 2017. Like,
okay,
Feel Good Inc. Gorillas,
yeah,
in various like little
they
music
do
videos or documentaries or things that they do. He has been the speaking voice of 2D, which I couldn't tell you which one 2D is, but
he's the lead singer.
Like, shout out to him. So yeah,
weirdly enough,
Kevin Bishop having a post Muppet Treasure Island career, because this was very much like the first thing he does. I think maybe like one or two little TV appearances.
I know he's on maybe he wrapped it up already, but he was on a like legacy show. I'm trying to think of what it was called. It was Porridge. It's like a prison show.
Oh, sure. I mean, like this is one of those. Whenever it's like a British actor who has a ton of British credits, I'm like, I don't know what's big. I can only speak to the things that have made it across the pond. Sometimes I typically look for. Yeah, he's on 6 episodes of Porridge. He's also in like Warhammer 2, Total War. A handful of things, but the thing that really like jumped out at me was
he had his own show.
Was the Gorillas thing? Actually.
Oh yeah, okay.
Seeing like all these Gorillas credits appear in his thing, being like, he's in the Gorillas, especially like. I only learned not too long ago that the Gorillas was really like a one-man thing.
Yeah, it was like a pair of producers created it, and it is for most part just one person.
Yeah, did not know that. Loved Gorillaz music growing up with like Feel Good Inc. and stuff like that, but yeah, just did not. I never looked into the broader scope of the band. So yeah, shout out to Kevin Bishop having a good long career post this one. Like the thing I almost inevitably see is some appearance in Doctors, a long running I'm guessing a soap opera. Yeah, like it's basically like their ER kind of thing. Like almost everybody has some sort of appearance in Doctors. Or yeah, a lot of times they'll be like, are they in Doctor Who? Were they ever in Doctor Who? I didn't see anything for Doctor Who for him. Anyway, now we move into some of the Muppets performers. We have Dave Goelz as the Great Gonzo and others, having played Gonzo since 1970. Steve Whitmire here as Kermit the Frog, and Rizzo and some others, having taken over the role of Kermit following Jim Henson's passing in 1990. Jerry Nelson as Statler and others. Most notably, his kind of voices in the Muppet sphere are Count Von Count and Mr. Snuffleupagus. Kevin Clash is in here as Bad Polly and others, Polly the Lobster. Kevin Clash was Elmo from 1985 till 2012, when he resigned from Sesame Street after allegations of sexual impropriety with minors, which he denied and were ultimately dismissed due to an expiration of statute of limitations. But that was his end. I do believe he seems to be in the Muppet family's good graces, because I think he was in the Return of the Fraggle Rock series recently. But yeah. Bill Beretta playing Clueless Morgan, among others. Has been a Muppeteer since 1991, which he started as Earl Sinclair on Dinosaurs. And after this, he would go on to originate Pepe the King Prawn in 1999. And lastly, Frank Oz, of course, playing Miss Piggy and Fozzie and others. Some of his notable creations: Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Sam the Eagle, Animal, Grover, Cookie Monster, Bert, and Yoda. A little bit of trivia. Not a trivia thing, but shout out to the Tumblr post that occasionally makes the rounds that I looked up, is credited to at Sephiroth Sephiroth and Amy, I'm guessing is her inspiration there. Where that is quoted as: the reason Michael Caine and Tim Curry are so good in their respective Muppet movies is Michael Caine treats the Muppets as fellow actors, and Tim Curry treats himself as a fellow Muppet. I always love seeing that little meme make the rounds, because I think it is a perfect encapsulation of these two movies of the Muppet era. Mm-hmm. Speaking of, Tim Curry was given a Muppet made in his likeness of him as Long John Silver following the shooting of the film. Hormel Foods Corporation, the makers of Spam, sued the production company for making the name of a warthog character Spam. Their suit, however, was defeated on September 22nd, 1995, with the judge with a scathing note saying, "One might think Hormel would welcome the association with a genuine source of pork." So yeah, love that bit. Tim Curry had been a huge fan of the Muppets for years before doing this movie, and has stated in many interviews since that he regarded Captain Long John Silver as one of his very favorite roles. Producer and director Brian Henson was very nervous that the whole cast and crew would get motion sick on the ship as the ship rolled on its gimbals. So he gave everyone seasickness pills on the first day of the shoot, but not only did the cast and crew not get seasick, they almost fell asleep on the job. This is a nice one. After Jim Henson's death, Rolf the dog was not recast for several years, as he was considered the character closest to Henson's actual personality, even more so than Kermit the Frog. In this movie, we see Rolf appearing, but he does not speak. He's in the first scene set at the tavern. Yep. So this is kind of like his first reappearance in the Muppet-verse. Kevin Bishop went through puberty during filming, so they had to overdub his singing performances with older recordings of the songs. Long John Silver offers the captain my very own best brandy laid down by the brothers of Buckfast Abbey. There's a joke often lost on U.S. audiences, as Buckfast tonic wine, commonly known merely as Buckfast, is a caffeinated and fortified wine sold in the British Isles. But rather than being a best brandy, it is known for being cheap but highly alcoholic, and therefore often drunk by those who prize getting as drunk as possible for as little money as possible.
That's awesome.
Love that little bit of trivia, just being like, oh yeah, I never would have gotten that as a kid or now. That is a very specific poke at a very $2 Chuck kind of vibes. This was a fun one. Frank Oz was unable to perform and puppeteer his signature characters like Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, and Sam the Eagle because he was busy directing Bowfinger, which would come out a few years later. Okay. In 1999. So Kevin Clash, who played Bad Polly and stuff, took over principal puppeteering duties during the shooting. Oz had and Oz would re-record the characters' voices in post-production.
Makes sense.
Oz had already participated in a recorded read-through of the script kind of prior to filming, so Clash used those recordings to help prompt the performances.
Nice.
And according to Clash, Oz gave him a brief description of each of his characters prior to shooting. Oz described Miss Piggy as, quote, a truck driver wanting to be a woman, and Fozzie Bear as somebody similar to Jerry Lewis. I thought that was interesting. Of like Frank Oz basically came in and did his role in Pickups. He wasn't really there on set doing everything. He just kind of came back and did the voices after the fact. A couple more bits of trivia here for you. Tim Curry tried a peg leg for Long John Silver, but the discomfort forced him to change it to just using a crush and basically hiding his foot up under his pantaloons for filming. And then Sir Billy Connolly took great pride in being the first person to die in a Muppet movie.
He would.
Absolutely. So what did you think, Cam? How does this one hold up for you? Was this something like, was this a staple of like your childhood growing up, or was this one that you like never really got into, never really like watched a ton, anything like that?
This is a certified Abbott Family classic right here. This one is, if we all had our picks of movies, this was up there with The Princess Bride. Like it's a top tier in the tiering of the Abbott Family classics. This is a top tier film. Absolutely loved by every single member of my family. I believe it is my younger sister's favorite movie of all time.
Oh, nice.
It's well loved in our house. It is, I mean, I grew up loving the Muppets. My family are big Muppets people.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. I have to be careful because there are some like serious Muppet heads out there that are like way more into it than my family is. But like my family, we have seen every single Muppets movie.
I do want to give a shout out to the person behind Muppet History, Joshua Gillespie, who I know through Twitter and stuff and follows me and I follow him because I'm pretty sure he was like a Kind of Funny fan at some point. I'm pretty sure he was somehow involved in that community because I feel like that's how I got introduced to him. And yeah, just seeing like how the Muppet History Twitter and accounts just blow up and stuff like that. It's if this was a show that I still tried to like reach out to guests and bring guests on, I would absolutely have reached out to him and been like, hey, we're going to do a podcast on Muppet Treasure Island. Seems like you could talk at length about it.
Oh, yeah.
Would you be interested? But I was like, that's more trouble than than I can really put into this these days. So
especially with me, with like my living situation schedule right now, that'd be a nightmare to try to put together.
So yeah, but shout out to Josh Gillespie and just the amazing work that he does with the Muppet History account, because just really cool stuff.
Yep. So there are some real Muppet heads. My family's just like we've watched every single Muppets film, and growing up, this was like this is the standout. This is. A lot of people are like, Muppets Christmas Carol is like their big one. Muppets Treasure Island is my family's big one. It is my favorite Muppets movie. It is, I think, just a brilliant film. Watching it, I laughed so much. I truly treasure this film. And the fact that they do so much to cover such a massive story in just an hour and 40 minutes is tantamount to just like really tight storytelling, really smart casting as far as like what Muppets play which role. Mm-hmm. How do you get Miss Piggy involved? Like,
interesting casting in that regard, especially like Benjamin Gunn and deciding to make this like little like when you cast Piggy as the Ben Gunn role, it's like okay, and you've cast Kermit as the captain, it's like okay, suddenly they now have a weird romance that isn't in the source material or anything like that.
Not at all.
But sure, yeah, let's have some fun with that. Let's give them a duet as they're hanging over cliffs.
Yep. There's a great, and honestly, this also taps into kind of like the older, and definitely more adult jokes in Muppets films where it's about Miss Piggy kind of having been around.
Yeah, that's definitely something I did not pick up on as a kid.
As a kid, I did not. Watching this, I was like, as I've watched older Muppet movies as like an adult, I'm like, wow, they really do a number on Miss Piggy being kind of like, I'm like, oh yeah, she's super in love with Kermit. And it's like, it's more like there are men she chooses and she gets obsessed with. And Kermit is just one of them. And that's nowhere like so clear in this one where they really...
him too. Learning that Piggy and Long John were acquaintances after we've just learned that she was with Captain Flint.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so good.
But also shout out to the like Piggy
tattoo on his chest. So good.
It's one of those like I'm sure I remember seeing it as a kid kind of thing, but not realizing how silly that is.
Yes.
And how like, it's the pirate trope that of course he's got like the, his
lovers
tattooed on his chest.
Yep.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
It's great. It's classic. It's so good.
And he's just also such a small Muppet. So
yes.
So it's like they
It's
really
really
have to
big.
like pump it out, pump out his chest
Yep.
to make it even readable.
This movie is it's full of the best slapstick. It's full of a bunch of like modern references for the time. Mm-hmm. There is a hilarious subplot of it being turned into a cruise ship for rats.
Yep.
Just really, really solid stuff going on throughout this entire movie. Visual gags out the wazoo. A lot of a lot of just great jokes throughout it. And just massive shout out for continuing the Gonzo Rizzo combo, keeping that going.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I saw in the trivia was originally kind of on the heels of Muppet Christmas Carol, they were going to make the character of Jim Hawkins like Gonzo is Jim and Rizzo is Hawkins or something like that. They were basically just going to divide that character up into two before they ultimately were like, no, let's go ahead and keep Jim as his own character, but we'll throw in
two best
Gonzo
friends.
and Rizzo is like, his two buddies that can kind of share the load with that character.
Yep. It also lets you kind of deviate, and you also get an extra plot line in Jim has been taken in by Long John and has like left his friends behind, which adds like a little more story to Jim and his like. It's all Jim's story, but honestly, once Long John gets involved and you get into the pirate plot, Jim in the book kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and so like this way it keeps Jim with a relevant plot line. And also like a redemptive moment for being taken in by Long John. I will say I enjoy like I enjoy the Jim Hawkins performance from Kevin Bishop. It really for me sells it in those moments between him. And honestly, I think it's just him and Tim Curry do have a sort of chemistry that works. Especially in those more tender moments.
Yeah, I agree. I think they have a lot of good. The scenes of the two of them together are great. I think my memory of this movie, because even like as a kid I remember thinking like, I don't like him as much as I like some of the other actors that work opposite the Muppets. And I think it's a tough thing for a kid to act and carry a movie against Muppets, but also like it was a weird like, all of like the falsetto and his singing and stuff like that. I felt like that was a weird like vibe.
I get why they had to.
Yeah.
Because as somebody who also tried to sing while they were going through puberty, it's not great.
Yeah.
You can't hit notes because your range is in the middle of changing.
Yeah. There was I took a note at some point. The moment in one of the songs where like Jim has a little bit of his falsetto. It's Anyway the Wind is Blowing.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like,
Jim has his little bit of falsetto going straight into Tim Curry's like Long John baritone is like such a wild juxtaposition.
Yes.
But yeah, I think the scenes that they all have together, the two of them have together, in particular, like the compass scene and like finding how to point to north is a great like heart to heart. And you see. And from the jump, you see Long John kind of like manipulating Jim a little bit, and in that moment, he's very much manipulating him. But he's also like, "Oh, I'm sorry, lad. I didn't mean to tease you. Here's your compass back. I'm not going to do anything with it."
Well,
like, lovely little beautiful moment there.
Yeah.
Like, and then the two of them on the beach when he's trying to like bring him into the fold, and then especially the two more moments. One. Like when all of the pirates turn on Long John and he basically like makes the sacrifice play and tells Jim to leave and like I hope you know I did like you and I wasn't like lying about that was a great moment. That's more of a Tim Curry moment. But then lastly the little send off where Long John's in the boat fleeing with the gold, and Jim can't, like, they neither of them can bear to pull the trigger. Jim blow the whistle on the other, because they have forged this friendship, this unlikely bond.
It's like Long John has stepped into a father figure role for him. There is like a deep bond between these two, and the fact that, Long John Silver's he's a cook and everything, but he's a sailor as well. Even when he gets outed as a pirate, it's still like a very big, like, it's tough because you have these genuine bonding moments. I think the North Star moment is so great, because you see like him being like, I'm gonna joke with you and I'm gonna manipulate you, and then he says, it was my father's, it's the only thing I have left of him, and that, like, you can see the heartstring getting tugged in that moment in Long John. And it's just Tim Curry's performance working with this kid that is just outright phenomenal. I don't think Kevin Bishop was a bad actor. I just think it's really hard to act against Muppets.
Yeah, especially like as your first thing. One of the trivia things was he was also the first person that auditioned for Jim. So like,
dang,
he impressed them enough to be the one that got the role from the jump. So shout out to him, even if as a dumb American who had never seen him do anything else after this, was just kind of like unaware of his post Muppet career.
Hey, he's been a working actor his entire life.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal. Like, congratulations to Kevin Bishop for us getting to learn more about you, and also, like, is it the most phenomenal performance? No, but as far as the first performance goes, especially like you're also going through, like, you're in the middle of your voice changing and you're trying to just get everything settled. Like, that's a rough time for anybody, much less to be in a Muppets movie during that. So
yeah,
massive shout out to him for that. I think there are those weak moments, but I think that he was able to properly act with Gonzo and Rizzo. I think the problems are when he's with Kermit, and a few of the other Muppets as well. Yeah,
and there were a couple other, like, one of my notes was like in the scene where. I think it's before they really start having the heart to heart in the North Star scene, but it's like Long John asks in the most suspicious way possible about the treasure map, and Jim kind of looks away in the most like telling way possible. It's very like over the top, like, I'm showing I have no poker face kind of thing. It's like you could have downplayed that a little bit.
Maybe. Yeah. I like that scene though, because it's very funny.
Yeah.
Because everybody's very on the nose about what's going on in that scene, and I enjoy that. No, I think that there's I absolutely love this film still. It is still such a great film to me.
Also, shout out to in that scene. Yeah, I found it in my notes. In that scene, they have like the sincere like North Star and talking about the father thing, but also the like, oh, what are you saying, Long John? You could captain this ship, and Long John immediately being like, that I could, lad. evil laugh kind of thing.
Yep.
And just like it's like that scene where it's like just Tim Curry just knocks this out of the park, and like he plays like with the full spectrum of the camp of the character, the camp of playing with the Muppets. It is that like. Michael Caine took everything deadly seriously, and Tim Curry leans fully into the fun of being a live-action Muppet in this Muppets movie.
Yeah, it really... Well, I mean, it's also embodying the very core sense of both those characters. Ebenezer Scrooge is a cold, heartless person, and Michael Caine executes that perfectly. Long John Silver is a larger-than-life personality. Even in a book called Treasure Island, he is by far, like, there's a reason why he's a classic in literature.
There's a reason they named a restaurant franchise after him.
Yeah, like, he's such a classic literature character.
It's not Jim Smollett's or Ben Gunn's.
Nope, it is 100% Long John Silver. Long John Silver is he's an iconic character. He stands out. He's beloved by, like, you read the book or you watch the movies, a Long John Silver should win you over, even though you know from the get-go he's the bad guy. The one-legged man, immediately you know from the get-go he is the bad guy, but you love him anyway.
Yeah.
And so Tim Curry embodies that perfectly. If you're like, I wonder if they're on set and they're like, hey, does anybody seen Tim? And they're like, oh, he's over there off in the on the quarter chewing the scenery. Tim Curry is just insanely talented, and it's on full display here.
Yeah.
If you ask me, hey, what's his most over-top performance? I would probably edge Rocky Horror Picture Show over this, but only by like a chunk, by like a small chunk, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as somebody who like, I feel like I've seen Rocky Horror Picture Show at so many theater parties I went to over the years, but I don't think I've ever actually sat down and watched the thing from start to finish. I'm always going to be much more of a Clue guy, and this is
Clue,
also another thing.
yes,
I remember,
100% Clue.
Brianna Chandler, Miss Movies, from the old Schmodown days. I believe she said something to the effect one day of like, or maybe she like just shared or retweeted this, but it was something to the effect of like, ask somebody what their favorite Tim Curry performance is, and you learn a lot about that person. And I remember being like, yeah, Clue is probably my favorite of his, but like Muppet Treasure Island is probably a close second, just because it like. Muppet Treasure Island is the like nostalgia pick for me because I watched this movie so much as a kid.
Yeah, but if you want to study like acting and stuff, like that
Clue is a better performance and a better movie overall, just with like the cleverness of the writing and comedy and everything.
Yeah, it's also a funnier movie, honestly. And he's
shout out to who was it recently? Miranda, I believe, in the Kind of Funny community that like just watched Clue for the first time, and I saw like our friend Jazz, our friend and fellow nerd, Jazz, basically like chiming in and responding to like, oh, I hope you like it. It's one of my favorites, kind of thing. So.
It's a top tier movie, absolutely. It is, and Tim Curry just absolutely nails it. I think when it goes to like iconic performances, Rocky Horror edges everybody else out. But I think like here's the thing, Tim Curry was in Clue.
Like Rocky Horror is the ultimate cult classic movie.
Yes, it is 100%.
It's like that and The Room are the two that like have tons of screenings for two very different reasons.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, those are the like Frankenfurter is such an icon of, and it's all down to Tim Curry's performance.
100%. That movie doesn't work without Tim Curry. Like, it's not even that he carries that movie. It's that the movie's on wheels and he's hitched to it and he drives that entire movie. Mm. Like the movie's like serviceable otherwise, but like it really is that performance that is like driving the entire movie. Yeah. Purely. Clue, I think, is a better acting / comedy. And then I guess, yeah, I mean, like, what can you say about an actor who has so many iconic performances? Some people will be like, oh no, I think his role as the serial killer in Criminal Minds is his best performance, because even that's a top tier performance.
I mean, as I said at the top, like he was Pennywise in It.
There you go. Yes,
like, iconic Pennywise for decades until the recent reboot kind of thing. So
yeah, just absolutely incredible. And so yeah, you can't speak highly enough about him. So this movie I can't speak highly enough about. It's so damn good from start to finish, stem to stern, as you might say. Sure. It is just it nails every single scene. It nails every single beat for me, and it is just like it's just so damn perfect. Even the goat. Oh God, don't even dead Bill. Like nearly
use your words.
Sorry.
The Billy Connolly, Billy Bones stuff.
Billy Bones at the beginning, incredible. And then I'm trying to think of it.
Dead Bill.
Dead Bill, yeah. Nearly Dead Bill.
Old Bill, really old Bill, and Dead Bill.
Dead Bill.
Yeah.
He killed Dead Bill. Hasn't Dead Bill always been dead?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Old Tom.
Tom, that's right. Tom.
Real old Tom.
See, I wasn't sure on the Bill name on it. That's why I was like, but it's old Tom, really old Tom, and dead Tom. Yeah. Hasn't Dead Tom always been dead? Oh yeah. Drops the skeleton.
Yep.
So good. What a great way of also being like, oh, he shot somebody.
Yep.
Well, he shot the skeleton.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And then he immediately like uses his silver tongue to bring everybody back over to his side. You wrote the black spot on the page of a Bible, you heathens, and all that stuff. Yeah.
So good.
Such great. I remember like being so afraid of the black spot because of this movie.
Yeah.
Like, and this movie doing a great job of like immediately setting up what a threat that is in the opening with Billy Bones, so much so that like whenever the black spot would come up in pirate stories after this, it was like, oh no, you are screwed.
Yeah.
Even into like a less than stellar, like it's one of the weaker outings, I would say, of the Matt Smith run. I believe it's the Matt Smith run, where they have like the little space pirate ship.
Yes.
But like they have the black spot that's coming in and like, affecting everybody. It was still like, oh, what a great use of that superstition and lore, and the way this plays into pirates are a very superstitious bunch all throughout. When we get
Yes.
Sam the Eagle rising with all the stuff and the seaweed on top of him or whatever, and everybody just immediately just jumping and running away. It's like, oh, that's a good way to avoid having to do another fight scene.
Yeah,
Since we're gonna have the big one at the end.
There's that. There's also it was, yeah, Billy Bones dying. So in like the book, he's already been like injured and he has a seizure. Oh, that's what I want to say. The dude showing up, the blind guy showing up at the beginning and be like with a French accent, I know you're here, Billy Bones.
Yeah. Blind Pew.
Blind Pew. Like the touching the moose head. Oh,
And the moose head being a Muppet,
Muppet,
and being
yep.
like, woo! Yeah. Oh, you're a pretty little girl. I'm not a girl, sir. Well, the voice kind of played into it.
Yep. And then
I love in that moment. This is one I noted here. Billy straight up just ready to shoot this guy.
Yes.
Cocks the gun. Blind Pew hears it and does the like super ninja moves to get
with
over
his
there
cane, just like
face.
like, and it's like it's such an incredible scene, and it's at the beginning of the movie, and it's just like just sets the tone of like, hey, pirates are great. Like this is like insane.
One of my very first notes is Billy Connolly sets such a great tone for this movie in the like. We get the opening flashback song number kind of thing with Billy Bones kind of telling the story of Captain Flint a little bit over it, but then like really comes into telling the story to this tavern of people, super over the top pirates, all that stuff. And yeah, he just does a great job of being like, yeah, you're in for a pirate adventure.
Yep. Oh, and straight up like, I'm in my madness. Like, and it's like, give me rum. You can have a small rum, sir.
Yeah.
Such a good
Billy freaking out and giving Jim the map.
Oh yeah, how does she do that?
Like my note here. Oh yeah, the how does she do that runner? Great. The fact that he says beware the one-legged man instead of beware Long John Silver, it's like that really would have cleared up a lot of confusion.
I mean, what if he wasn't using his name though? Like that's the whole thing.
Sure, very true. Yeah, all fun and games till somebody loses and yeah, because I also love also never run with scissors, and like he's like it's the that's right, this is a kids movie, we should say kids lines kind of thing. Everybody shows up to murder the already dead guy. Like shout out to
that's right.
Shout out to the we get so many good little beats where it's just like they bring in a completely different version of a Muppet for one gag.
Yeah.
We get one in the opening scene there when Jim finds the map, pulls the map out, and we see Gonzo and Rizzo's eyes come up, and they have dollar signs for eyes instead of the normal pupils. Great bit there. Also, the end of the movie when Piggy drops and Kermit grabs her, and we zoom up and we see like Kermit's eyes bulging out of his head in a way that we do not normally see. Just loved those little bits and beats.
And how are you going to put the old men in? Okay, we'll make them the
masthead. Yeah,
the masthead. Yeah. It's perfect, absolutely perfect.
And they get to save the day when Kermit and Piggy fall. Like so many classic. As I was watching it, and I will say, my thing on this was I watched this movie in fits and starts over the last week or so. Like I would start watching it, and then I just kind of would like get distracted, and I'd be like, all right, I've watched enough. Until last night when I finally just sat down and restarted the movie and watched it kind of straight through. Because a lot of it was like, oh yeah, I mean from you said, I think you said this is your favorite of the Muppet movies.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Muppet Christmas Carol easily beats this one out for me. But I do remember like loving, especially like the soundtrack to this one, and like listening to the soundtrack probably on cassette.
It's so good.
A ton and stuff. I feel like I kept waiting for it, and when it came, I was like, oh, it feels like that. Like I remember that being a bigger thing than it ends up being. So maybe it was just like, oh, young Trevor played basketball so much that like a song all about boom shakalaka laka was like
bigger for you.
That was my personality for a good couple of months, was just that song. And so yeah, like when it finally comes, I'm like, there isn't as much to this as I remember it, or it didn't feel as iconic as I remember it feeling. Compared to like every song that comes up in Muppet Christmas Carol, I remember and immediately comes flooding back. A lot of the songs in this, like Cabin Fever, is probably the most iconic one in this, just because it's so over the top and flamboyant and,
good
and rambunctious. It is the most like big Muppet spectacle number in a very fun way. But yeah, the ultimately like the songs didn't hit as well for me all these years later as I remembered them as a kid. But I think that's just like, times and taste have changed. Still fun, but they were. It was very much like I so specifically remember being so drawn and connected to the music on this. So like watching it all these years later and just not really feeling that anymore was like, that's a piece of my childhood that's just gone apparently. Yeah, well,
I think that's here's the thing. I think that's fine for me. It whichever way the wind is blowing is still like, I forgot how great that song is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like even like, I guess it's as much the songs didn't come flooding back to me as immediately as like a Muppet Christmas Carol soundtrack does, but they were still like big fun numbers usually.
Yes.
A couple exceptions, like
ending the note on sailing on in the big blue wet thing.
Yep. Fozzie's Mr. Bimbo character.
And Mr. Bimbo being like actually like an experienced sword fighter. He's been to the moon.
Sure, yeah.
Twice.
One of the trivia things I saw was basically like, at the beginning of the movie, Frank Oz was like, "This is such a dumb thing. I don't get the Mr. Bimbo thing." But by the end of it, it ended up being like one of his favorite gags for the character.
It's great. It's like, how do you make Fozzie Bear anything like not normal? Like he doesn't have that much screen time in this movie.
Yep.
Admittedly, compared to the other Muppet films.
Yep.
You get a lot of side Muppets in this one, which is great. Like you get a lot of like Gonzo, Rizzo obviously have the biggest Muppet roles in this one. But a lot of the other Muppets are some of the like not usual Muppets.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it being like, we're gonna use a lot of these like as the pirates. So you're not gonna have like Beaker and Bunsen being in there. Like I love the little gag about the Swedish Chef being like, well, we had to figure out some way to get him into the movie.
You have that. You have the band. The band is not a major focal point. They show up in two scenes.
Yep, pretty much. Yep, they have that like, they're playing for all the rats on the cruise kind of thing, and then they're playing for all the pirates. And I love even that, the little meta bit of like, which side are we on, bro? Don't ever get invested in politics. Don't think about that. Don't worry about that.
I don't do politics, man.
Yeah. I like. That was a moment where I was like, if I was like watching this on a computer, I'd screenshot and then be like, well, here's a meme format for you.
There you
for
go.
anybody who comes in is like, we don't like, games shouldn't be about politics. Final Fantasy VII is about politics. It would just be like, that's the line. It's like, you're an idiot. But yeah. But like, there are a couple like, the Kermit and Piggy duet doesn't really do anything for me.
No, I think that's a missed. I think that's a missed one. I think that especially because it's like they're dangling, so like nothing's happening in that scene.
I actually I really like that they juxtapose that song with the montage of the pirates finding the gold. Like that makes it a fun visual sequence when the characters who are singing upside down, hanging for their lives kind of thing. So it's like they can't be active. They didn't choose to like do a flashback to a time when they were happier together or something like that. So the fact that like while that song is happening, we're getting fun slow motion of like Muppets throwing gold on each other and stuff like that. Is a good way to it's a good economy of storytelling in that bit. And then there was also like this weird the end credits song is like this weird little reggae love power.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
I was like, this is such a weird.
Yep, that's a weird inclusion. Don't care for it. Do enjoy that it's the Rads doing like underwater activities though. That's fun.
and they pull up the treasure.
Yeah.
Like it the ongoing runner of Rizzo's little pirate cruise thing is such a fun little like beat to and the way that a lot of the numbers do juxtapose the pirates with the rats sequence. I think we get that with the Anyway the Wind is Blowing number, as well as Cabin Fever.
With Margarita, like Margaritas at Midnight.
Yeah.
Or Midnight Margaritas. That's right.
Yep.
Incredible. Like, love that little tidbit when they're doing the shuffleboard and it gets washed away.
Yeah, all the alcohol again with the very cheap brandy apparently.
So good.
The ongoing bit where it's like, yeah, I get like part of this feels like maybe this is because this is a movie directed towards kids, we shouldn't have Kermit drinking alcohol or whatever.
I think that works, yeah.
So yeah, I
but it
like
also
that
sets
for-
him up as being a stern captain. We don't do booze. Like,
Yep.
everybody needs to stay sober. Like, it sets him up as an authority.
I mean,
figure.
like why, and I like it's just coming off the heels of him finding out just how pirate laden this crew is, and he's not dumb about it. Like it's not something that is overlooked by him. He immediately looks at this crew and is like, this is the craziest bunch of scoundrels I've ever seen.
Who's responsible for this? Points everybody to
Mr. Bimbo.
Mr. Bimbo.
Yeah.
Classic.
And Mr. Bimbo relying very heavily on the ship's cook, Long John Silver. Makes sense. Sets up that, he kind of has the mutiny plan from the beginning.
Which is part of the book, like the novel. So it's great.
But yeah, like I do appreciate too what you're saying. Like Polly and Clueless Morgan are like the Muppets that get like a lot of the screen time in this, as well other things. Shout out to the face turn that Sweetums gets. As such a fun, iconic, just big Muppet. He's this big imposing pirate character throughout the whole thing, and then he comes in at the end and like whacks out. And they're like, "Oh, we thought you were on their side." He's like, "No, I love you guys."
Perfect. Yeah.
Just such a great beat and bit. And then I like there are like a couple bits where I'm like, oh, this. It's not that it aged poorly or something like that. But it is. I remember like the Spam and all like the boars and warthog characters. I remember them being like a bigger deal or something like that.
I did too. They're a much smaller part than I remember them being.
But yeah, I do love them like coming back and like throwing their arrow or whatever, and then like
you have boom
sticks. You have boom sticks. Bye bye. And they just all flee. So not used a ton, but used very effectively. And I think part of it all does come down to like my love of the Boom Shakalaka song growing up that didn't hit as strong for me this time around. But yeah, my notes there. Miss Piggy gets the exact kind of entrance she always wanted and always adores, and then immediately follows it up with the perfect crash down the stairs.
Yes. With her anteater, yes.
Yep.
A scene I wanted to point out too, because it's such a great scene, is when it's at the end of the final fight. Kermit is in the flowing white shirt, open chest, has the gold hilted sword, gets over there, and then everybody starts, you'll have to go through me, and they're all wearing the same exact freaking outfit. Mm-hmm. Even though in just earlier moments in the scene, they're all wearing their own outfits. Now they're all wearing the iconic same outfit of like the swashbuckling hero. And something I noticed this time around is they all have the same exact sword. Mm. Everyone has the same gold-hilted sword. And it's fantastic. Long John Silver, like Kermit showing off his sword skills, cutting up his coat and everything, and then losing the sword and being like,
I'm going frog, slippery hands.
Yep, amphibians, slippery hands.
Yeah, I was just going to jump on that. My note there was Kermit Zorro's Long John Silver's outfit a couple years before the Zorro movie would come out with the very iconic Catherine Zeta-Jones bit of that. But yeah, love that bit. Love the like reveal that Long John realizes he's still got the keys so he can make his escape. Paid off with the Mr. Arrow being like, I know for a fact that ship was very unsafe. And then we see Long John sinking and having to flee to the island. I didn't remember this, probably just because I didn't like stay around for the credits growing up. But there is a little scene in the credits of like one of the statues telling a joke to Long John. Yeah. And the joke being something to the effect of like, why is the sea always cranky? And you would be too if you had crabs on your bottom. And being like, oh, that's a joke that definitely would have gone over my head as a kid. And just played completely straight for the like oh, it's not doing the sexual innuendo thing, but the parents know that
Yep.
that's a little bit what's going on there.
Yeah, it's interesting. So in the end of the Stevenson novel, Long John escapes. He doesn't escape with the treasure. He escapes, I believe, with a bag of silver.
I mean, yeah, well, he doesn't escape with the treasure here either because the boat sinks.
True, yeah.
And the rats end up getting it as part of their cruise treasure.
But Long John does get it. It's not like he gets back to the island in the book. He he basically flees, and so he doesn't end up in prison. And it ends on like a haunting note. I remember it's Jim Hawkins still wakes up from a nightmare thinking he hears the parrot say "pieces of 8."
Sure.
That's like a haunting moment of like, I let him go, but like, maybe I regret it now. Like it's a whole thing. Like Long John also in the book is a lot more murderous and a lot less.
Yeah. I mean, they had to pull some punches. It being a Muppets movie.
It's a Muppets movie.
Like we said, they could only kill dead Tom. Shout out to the tour guide coming in saying, "This is the actual jungle location for Muppet Treasure Island."
So good.
And then some other rat tourist just being like, "Hey, when do we eat?" Just being the iconic cruise ship person that I certainly was.
I still am. If you take me on a cruise, I'm just all about eating.
Absolutely. Trying to think if there are any other. Shout out to the weird wannabe Marlon Brando pirate. And the whole pirate number.
Oh, the pirate
when
number.
You're a professional pirate. That's another.
Such a great
fun
song.
That's and Tim Curry even calls it out in the song. "This is my only number. Take me upstage, boys," or whatever.
It's so good.
And just goes again full camp with it. Shout out to Sweetham's little feat of strength of holding up Long John by one arm at the end.
Yeah.
It's we're a festival of conviviality.
Dude, I will say I do love that I could have been a contender moment because it does come out of nowhere and it's like, I forgot there was a revival of Marlon Brando. I could have been a contender sometime in the 90s for some reason, but because On the Waterfront's a movie from the 1950s.
Yeah.
It was black and white. That's an old ass movie.
I mean, it was the 80s and 90s. I feel like everybody comedians basically were like, "I'm gonna do a Brando," and that's just one of the iconic ones they did in their Brando impersonations. Shout out to. I had forgotten that we had a payoff for it. So I took a note initially of Gonzo's thing about having starfish. This is so weird. Eating apples in a barrel or whatever. Yeah, that and my pants are filled with starfish. You and your hobbies.
That's right.
But then
oh
we
my
get
gosh.
the payoff of Gonzo throwing the starfish and using them as ninja stars against one of the pirates in the end.
Yep.
Such a great Gonzo's a weirdo.
So good. Yeah, he's a human, and I'm a rat.
A human, a rat, and whatever. The whatever.
Just
the humans want to spend time together. They don't want to spend time with a rat and a whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
Shout out to Gonzo absolutely loving being tortured and stretched out.
Yes, I can play for the
I'm
NBA.
so much taller. Yeah, I'm going to play in the NBA. And then leading into the window shade cure from Bunsen and Beaker. And that was a fun bit, especially because I'd watched it earlier in the week and then last night was just kind of watching straight through. I love how many beats on the ship just have the human pirates in the background, just kind of amused and enjoying what the Muppets are up to. Just they're not in the scene. They're just kind of there reacting to what they see. And that's one where the human pirates are just in the back there watching watching Gonzo dangle and then get thrown up and then land on Beaker. Shout out to big fat ugly bug face baby eating O'Brien.
Yep.
Which I could have sworn it was finally looking up the cast on this. That always looked to me like a silly little Gina Davis cameo. Just she pops in for one little scene and then she's gone. Not Gina Davis, but a very Gina Davis kind of lookalike. Mm-hmm. Just some I'm guessing some model or something. She only had one other credit to her IMDb profile, but also I love shout outs to the interplay. Oh, I mean shout out to Sam the Eagle in general in this one.
Oh, absolutely, he's great.
One of the little bits of trivia was this is very much like one of the first prominent Sam the Eagle roles that he gets. Like he was the school teacher in Muppet Christmas Carol, but like he has a kind of a good supporting chunky role in this one, and just the juxtaposition of his incredibly stern Mr. Arrow against Kermit's much more laid back Captain Smollett, but like 50 lashes to you and walk the plank. I didn't say that. I was paraphrasing. Such a great little
just being such a bigger ass.
Any man caught dawdling will be shot on sight. I didn't say that.
I was paraphrasing, sir.
Yeah. And and him introducing it as like, oh, he's got demons, and Gonzo's like, he's got demons? Cool. Always love Gonzo just being Gonzo. Shout out to Paulie having the Mickey Disneyland joke of like, what's next? A singing, dancing mouse that has his own amusement park? in reference to like a talking parrot. How ludicrous that is. Also, shout out to Gonzo's line that is like, this is probably one of the ones that like, I had no reason to quote it as many times as I did growing up, but one leg, Jim, count 'em, one. Just such a great, like,
so good.
Love that. I don't think I have anything else. Shout out to the slogan for the Rat Cruise being "We put the rat in pirates."
Yep.
Great bit there. I started to say this earlier. I think this movie, more than most Muppet movies, at least to me, or at least in terms of like what immediately comes to mind, they really use the Muppets as like live action cartoon characters.
Yes, they do.
I think we get that a lot with the fight sequence, because you like seeing, someone throw ninjas like starfish as ninja stars would be something right at home in a SpongeBob cartoon or something like that. And the first bit we get of that, I think, is the gunpowder and bullets bit.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
All the pirates come in, and and all just the ludicrousness of like the setup of that, and then the payoff of like running and following.
That entire like tavern fight is a massive cartoon. It's all slapstick. The powder is, I think, that absolute perfect bit. Also, when when what's her name busts out of the well, and I was like, I remember her coming through the window. I didn't remember her coming through, like taking off like part of the wall with her.
Yeah. And I think she's got like a couple guys
in her
arms, and she's like throwing them.
Yeah, she's like, she beats the crap out of
Don't worry about me, boys. I'll be fine. How does she do that? Yeah. A great little, again, like somebody who like, especially for the fact that like she's one of like the 3 or 4 credited people at the top of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like her and Billy Connolly is like, you have such small parts in this movie, but you are a couple of the big human actors in this movie. So yeah,
and they kill it. And like they steal their scenes.
And absolutely, yeah, they set the tone appropriately for everything.
When she says
I can't get my beauty sleep. Yeah.
Also when she goes, and no rum, and Billy Connolly goes, how did she do that?
Yeah.
Like it's the carryover on is perfect. She's there for just enough time. I like this, like I mentioned at the top. This is such a tight movie. They get through so many scenes, and they do so many song numbers in just an hour and 40 minutes, and they absolutely deliver on it.
Another little like live action cartoon bit in the like Gonzo and Rizzo torture scene, when I love when Sam comes in and Clues Morgan like grabs the hot poker to hide it, and like you immediately see him start to quiver, and you see a little bit of steam come up, and he of course freaks out, as anybody would. I like the 2024 version of that, I feel, would play into the fact that he's a Muppet and just completely go up in flames.
Maybe,
and like have that extra little comic beat. But yeah, so great, so fun. Cabin Fever, so much fun. We talked about. I love, everybody kind of having like the Chiquita banana look to them, and then the wind comes back and just immediately everything's back to normal.
Yep,
and they're all like, "Why were we so weird?" Again, so many things. So many of my notes in here are just Long John doing a cool thing or a great thing. When the pirates are sailing to the island, I love that we get a little beat of like the rats doing like a speedboat, and somebody kind of like skiing behind being like, I can't hold it, and then the person in the boat being like, he said faster. just Pitch Perfect. I remember that being the thing we would do at the lake, like at Lake Roosevelt here with like friends when we go out for the summer or something like that. We'd have a little speedboat, somebody would be like dragging behind in the tube and being like, stop. I think he's saying go faster. Until they just eat it and wipe out and then you go swing back around and get them. Another fun visual gag. Like the dollar sign eyes and stuff like that. I love the beat that we get of the glow in the dark eyes.
Yes. It's so good.
With all the other eyes popping up, it ends up being all the boars and spam and the boars. Trying to think anything else. I love like it was one of those like we see Piggy decked out in some gold and stuff, so like if you're savvy you can piece together that okay, she found the treasure and that's why it's empty when the pirates get it. But I probably didn't catch that as a kid watching this for the first time. I didn't catch it this time around, I love that they kind of they give you that little bit of foreshadowing, and then the movie actually calls it out and it's like, oh really, well how do you have that necklace made of Spanish doubloons? Shopping Channel. Great little gag of that time. Speaking, you mentioned earlier, like they have a lot of like kind of cultural references of the time. I like Gonzo's line in the beginning that is just fully the beginning bit of Star Trek of like, we'd go on a 5-year voyage, traveling where nobody's traveled before or whatever. Hey, that sounds pretty catchy. Love that. I think that's probably it.
I mean, honestly, you could start from the beginning, go to the very end, and there it is. Like this movie is incredible.
I do appreciate the Deus Ex Mr. Arrow coming up with the boat to save them, to get them back to the ship. That's just a fun little bit there. Another playing with the superstition, all the pirates thinking that like the ship coming in is Flint's ghost, so they immediately flee, and Long John has to go wrangle them again, get them back. So much fun stuff in the good guys versus pirate showdown. One of the notes I took here, when Jim is fighting off a human pirate, we see Long John in the background being like, come on, Jerry, he's just a kid.
Yep, it's so good.
Like, yeah, he's a kid who has never fought with a sword before.
Nope.
Like, what kind of pirate are you that you can't take out a little kid? But yeah, as we touched on, like the greats, everybody being like, if you want to kill the frog, you got to kill me and me and him, and if you want to kill the bear, you'll have to negotiate, very carefully with Rizzo being like, of course, he's not going to put his life on the line. But yeah, shout out to the movie. Lots of fun, lots of great little beats there. And we get the one final scene there with the nice, beautiful moment of Long John returning the compass, and in the Long John and Jim kind of standoff at the end.
Yeah,
that is like he's a pirate, but he had an affinity for this kid, whether he saw a bit of himself in him or whatever it is. Like he's not going to be so vile that he's going to keep the compass and dangle it and be like,
he's not gonna,
fuck you, kid, I'm fleeing with my gold.
He totally could. Like he totally could. It's totally within that vein of it, but it's not true to the characters.
Yeah.
And him giving back the compass is true to that relationship.
Yeah, and I like the Kermit moment that follows, like, well done, Jim. Like, you made your father proud.
Yeah.
Being like, like, they could keep him. Also, I like shouting out to earlier, like, I had forgotten how quickly we get the characters realizing the turn of Long John to land ho to immediately, like, telling Kermit that Long John's been planning a mutiny, and okay, Mr. Silver, please take the men aboard and ready the ships and take them aboard. Like, and the plan being, we're gonna just leave them here for a year, strand them, come back, and the fight will be out of them, kind of thing. By that point, like a very shrewd and clever tactic that is only thwarted by Long John immediately having that bit of like, never trust a silver platter. they're onto something.
Yep.
Hey, I'm going to take Jim with me.
It plays into Kermit's being savy and plays into
Long John being savvy.
Yep. Figuring it out. Savvy.
A good battle of wits.
Yeah.
Among them. So yeah, shout out. Oh, also, my last note in my notes pad. Shout out to the R&B version that we get of the duet of the Kermit and Piggy duet. Love Lettuce Here. Being like the last thing, because that was just such a thing of the time. It was always like, what's the big musical number of this? Now we're gonna find a couple R&B artists and do that over the end credits. Yeah. Like you have that with like A Whole New World and stuff. So much so that when Star Kid did Twisted, they did the same thing of like they brought in a couple of their friends to do an R&B version of
there you go.
One of the big numbers from Twisted as a over the end credits. So shout outs to that just being like that was such a staple of the time. Let's do the song again, but R&B-ified. So yeah, shout out to Muppet Treasure Island here. We already talked through favorite moments and stuff like that, so let's dive right into the report card, where we grade from A+ to F. What do you want to give Muppet Treasure Island here, Cameron?
Oh man, it's an A+. I'm not even going to try to like pretend to be like, coy about it. It's an A+ for me. This movie is still like a standout. It's still my favorite Muppet movie. Mm-hmm. I think that maybe a better Muppet movie might be The Muppets from 2011, but I think this one is just such a classic. It's such a standard. It is.
I do often think of and quote Chris Cooper, maniacal laugh. Even watching this, anytime a character did a maniacal laugh, that's what was
in your head.
That's what I was saying in my head.
That's fair. I just think that it's a modern Muppet film, so it works super well.
Yep.
But for me, this to me is classic Muppets. I know a lot of people think of like, the Muppets original film, The Great Muppet Caper, a lot of these other Muppet films from like the 80s and like some of the early ones. I know you're a bigger fan of Muppet Christmas Carol, but to me, this is like I have watched this movie so many times, and it just stands out to me as a, like I said, from stem to stern, just incredible film. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is my favorite Muppet movie. It is an A+ for me.
There you go. I think I'm gonna give this one an A-.
That's fair.
Still a lot of fun, and I think there were issues I had with the pacing of it that I think was what was fueling the like stop-start nature for me for so much of the last week or so. But then sitting down and just kind of watching it all through, it's still it's a fun time when you don't let yourself be distracted by Twitter or whatever else, and just kind of sit down and enjoy the movie. It's fun in that vein. I think that's probably what was going on, was I was just trying to multitask too much when I was watching it earlier in the week. But yeah, so much fun. Doesn't hit the highs for me as Muppet Christmas Carol, or like you said, the Muppets, or even some of those earlier Muppet films that I do think maybe hold up a little bit better. One of the things I would love to see them come back to this genre of let's take the Muppets and just kind of put them into a classical story. One of the bits of trivia I saw was after Muppet Christmas Carol, they were trying to figure out what the next one was going to be, and they had it between Muppet Treasure Island here and Muppet King Arthur, I think, was basically the other one. Like the Muppets in the Round Table or something was the other idea that they were floating and playing around with. And so I think there's a lot of fun to be had there. There's another meme you see that kind of makes the rounds always, is like, what's a movie you would remake where there's one human character and everybody else is Muppets, and like make it work kind of thing. And I think there's a ton of fun options that would be had there. But yeah, just kind of seeing like the things I found myself thinking as I was watching this, I was like, I would love to see a Muppets Three Musketeers movie.
That'd be great.
Like that. I think that's that's a fun, where maybe like the human is D'Artagnan and everybody else is a Muppet or something like that.
Can I have two humans instead of just one?
Yeah, of course.
Die Hard.
Die Hard would
Bruce Willis, Alan Rickman, everyone else is Muppets.
I mean, when the meme makes the rounds, it's what's a realistic thing you could do now. Like one I feel like that often comes up is like you can't do Die Hard because
Bruce Willis can't talk, and Alan Rickman is dead.
Yes.
So there you go.
It's very much like just do a Knives Out movie where Benoit Blanc is like the only human and everybody else is Muppets, and I think that would be a ton of fun.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like any number of those kinds of things. I mean, like even in that vein, anything of like the Agatha Christie era of things, you could just do that story with like a real person and just a ton of Muppets and stuff. And I think there's just a lot of fun to be had in these characters being thrown into another role, like we see in this and Muppet Christmas Carol, in a way that, like the Muppets wasn't interested in doing that when it came back, and they weren't interested in doing that in Muppets Most Wanted. I mean, like, honestly, if you really wanted to go like full, 90s Muppet Babies with it, and they're all in the same umbrella, so they could do it, do Star Wars, where like,
there you go.
where you just do A New Hope with the Muppets as characters, and just have some fun with that or something like that. But yeah, A- for me. Still great, still a lot of fun. Didn't hold up as well as my memory held up in my head for it, but a very fun time. And Tim Curry, absolutely an MVP and all-star for Long John Silver in this. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. You have The Muppet Movie, the original, Muppet Christmas Carol, which we talked about back on That D Plus Show, episode 52, our first holiday season month of things, I believe. Kind of at the end of our first year of That D Plus Show. The 2011 Muppets film, Muppets Most Wanted, The Great Muppet Caper, Muppets Now, The Muppets, the 2015 series, and then the 2018 through 21 Muppet Babies is the other series in here. I'll also throw on top of that, The Muppet Show has all 5 seasons on Disney Plus, mostly unedited. I think there's maybe a couple little minor cuts and stuff here and there, but find a guest star that you like and just watch any episode of that. That's always fun. And then also I'm going to shout out, just because, they didn't get a ton to do in this, but we had the short-lived The Muppets Mayhem season recently that came out just last year, that I'm like, it's weird that Disney Plus isn't trying to direct people to that. But, maybe go check that out. Maybe that's a fun thing. I don't know. I never actually sat down and watched that one. Maybe that's something we can throw into the queue at some point. But yeah. Extracurriculars, anything else that you've been watching on Disney Plus, or was it very much just Muppet Treasure Island and then other just focusing on other stuff?
It's that. It's for anybody who only listens to That D Plus Show, I have moved out temporarily until I find more permanent employment that pays me money that I can pay Trevor rent. So that's where my life has been very much upended in a very big way. So I'm kind of like split between working substitute jobs and I don't have like the best best situation to be doing things right now. I'm kind of like cramped up in a small room, but I was able to watch this, and I will be looking forward to watching Lego Star Wars probably, because I got to get out of the house.
Because anything to hop on a podcast and get out of the house. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Oh, I also haven't been watching anything else on Disney Plus. Most of my time this last week was spent playing through Star Wars Outlaws, or just kind of jumping around watching some other stuff. That is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk Muppet Treasure Island here. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, we did a bit of a light review of Star Wars Outlaws. If you want to listen to it, last Monday's episode. Spoilers, big changes to that review coming this Sunday, and hopefully Trevor's letting me borrow it because he's finished it. So hopefully I'll have some feedback as well. So looking forward to it. Yeah,
indeed. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. That was very much the bulk of last week's That Nerdy Site Show, or this week's That Nerdy Site Show, was my first day or so with Star Wars Outlaws, and it was like, oh, it's okay. They're like, I have some problems with it, but the vibes are good, and it nails kind of the Star Wars aesthetic. And then as I played more and more of the game, the problems started to really like compile and just really show themselves for a very disappointing and frustrating time. So by the end of my time with the game and beating the game, I was very, my opinion on it had very much soured. And still, like, I finished it Monday, Labor Day, and have had zero interest in like going back and doing any of the myriad of like post game or like the side missions that I didn't do. I very much kind of like mainlined the story so that, you know, I could do side missions and stuff if I wanted to afterwards to get my ranking with all of the cartels up or something like that. And I finished the game, was like, I don't want this anymore. So have gone back to Fields of Mystery and just enjoyed more time with that.
So yeah,
and
upcoming
have Astrobot.
Yep, there you go.
This weekend to cleanse my palate, I think.
There you go. It'll be a fun. It'll be a fun That Nerdy Site show this upcoming.
Indeed, yeah. As we talk, kind of more full thoughts on the game, and if Cameron has some time to put into it, we'll get his feedback on it as well. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com. As I said, next week's episode will probably be a day or two delayed, depending on just how long it takes to sit down and actually like put everything together, since the episode's going to come out Friday. If they do the thing where it's like, hey, it's out at like, you know, Thursday night at blah, 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 that's probably when I'll sit down and watch it, just so I can spend Friday making the doc for it, and then maybe either recording Friday night for a Saturday morning go live, or we just record on Saturday and plan on that. Maybe we'll end up just doing that, because that way we can double up and do like Saturday That D Plus show and That Nerdy Site show. Save you a trip over here.
Sounds good to me.
Star Wars, Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy. Which also I will fully be buying some of those Lego sets eventually.
Not surprised.
When I let my my resources pile back up a little bit, since now I have to pay a little bit more in rent with Cameron out. But I'm sure they will be out there for a while, because hey, I really want that Dark Millennium Falcon with Darth Jar Jar. I think there's a lot of fun to be had in those sets, and like one of them is like a mix and match X-wing and TIE fighter parts.
That sounds rad.
So yeah, you can have basically like a
TIE wing,
basically a TIE wing or an X fighter, or like a mix, and you could have like the body and one side X-wing and then the other side is a TIE fighter or something like that, and you can play around with it. So shout out to Lego, just being the cool Lego things that I love. If you like what you heard, once again, please remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. We went pretty much as long as the movie on this one, so always fun there. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed. Yar!
Yar!